So ecstasy is one of the more common names for MDMA. It's also known as XTC, or atom, or doves, or X, or E. Strictly speaking, it's just a member of the amphetamine family, and it's similar in chemical structure to methamphetamine. But ecstasy has both a stimulant and hallucinogenic properties, whereas amphetamine, it's just purely a stimulant. So MDMA, it's going to stimulate that release of the serotonin, or that feel-good chemical that occurs naturally in the brain. And serotonin is going to be involved in various brain functioning, involved with mood and emotions. And scientists now believe that MDMA damages the parts of the nerves that transmit the serotonin. So this could be why some people take it who take it end up suffering from depression and anxiety and so on. So MDMA, it was first synthesized or artificially created in 1914 by a German drug company. So it was intended to be an appetite suppressant, although it was never actually marketed. Nothing more was done with that drug until the early 1950s, when it started being tested by the US military. So there's this rumor going around that they were considering using it as a truth drug, but the idea was that the drug could be given to enemy prisoners so that when they were questioned, they would talk openly about their side's weapons or their plans, etc. It was then tried on a smaller scale by some psychotherapists, and they also felt that it helped people to relax and open up. And therefore, it was encouraging their patients to talk about the problems. Some therapists in Switzerland, they started using the drug in this way. And in the US and the United Kingdom, there is no current recommended medical use for MDMA. And then by the late 1970s, MDMA made its way to the street as a recreational drug. Its dangers started to become apparent, so it was classified as a Schedule 1 drug in the US. That means that there's penalties for possession or dealing, and those penalties are high. So this drug is produced illegally on a large scale, often within the country that it's sold. And although there are large amounts that are smuggled into the United States from Western Europe. Chemical messengers, such as serotonin, are going to cross from one nerve cell in your brain to another. So this diagram, it shows how an electrical signal in the nerve cell at the top causes the serotonin in the nerve cell to be released. And then it's captured by the receptors that are tan on the next nerve cell, and later it's reabsorbed into the first nerve cell. So in the United States, the National Household Survey on Drug Abuse found that 6,400,000 people over the age of 12 reported having used ecstasy at some point, with 2,500,000 teenagers claiming to have tried it at least once. So in 2002, the European Monitoring Center for Drugs and Drug Addiction estimated that there were around 3,500,000 adults in the European Union that had used ecstasy. And in the UK specifically, there were between 500,000 to 1 million teenagers that claimed to have tried it at least once. And the UK government estimates that over 1 million ecstasy tablets are taken every weekend. So MDMA, it mainly comes as a tablet or a capsule. So the appearance is going to vary. It's going to range from brown, pink, or white tablets to either clear, red and yellow, or red and black capsules. There's usually a brand name or a logo like butterflies, lightning bolts, or four-leaf clovers. It can also be sold as a powder. This drug is usually swallowed, although the powder may occasionally be smoked or snorted, and injecting MDMA is pretty rare. So, like amphetamines, MDMA is going to raise the blood pressure. It's going to increase the heart rate and the breathing and keep people awake all night. And unlike amphetamines, it also causes people to feel deeply relaxed. They may feel warmly toward other people and have a strong sense of empathy, like when you understand another person very well. But like amphetamines, MDMA also makes people feel like they don't need to eat or sleep. It's a popular party or club drug. The effects can last for hours, and usually the users say they feel a rush of well-being, and that's going to be followed by a sense of calm. Sometimes they feel that they can hear more clearly and see colors more vividly. Other effects are going to include dilated pupils, teeth clenching, nausea, sweating, dry mouth, and overheating. So, nightclubs are an environment in which people might be offered ecstasy. So, there was a young lady named Claire. She was 16 years old. She said, "The first time that I used E was fantastic. I had a really great time, but the next day I couldn't sleep and weird stuff started going on in my head. I was seeing strange creatures like I was possessed by some sort of demon." Compared with the other drugs, we just don't know much about the long-term effects of ecstasy use. To a certain extent, though, those using it are human guinea pigs. The users often argue that ecstasy is safe, but there is increasing evidence to suggest that this is far from true. Unpleasant side effects might be experienced immediately, or they might kick in as the drug starts to wear off. These can include nausea, chills, sweating, muscle cramps, teeth clenching, blurred vision, and hallucinations. And ecstasy has also been linked to liver and kidney problems. Some of the side effects can last for weeks after the drug was taken, and it might be similar to those that were experienced by amphetamine users. They include anxiety, sleeplessness, depression, confusion, and paranoia. Scientists are still doing some research on the effects of MDMA. Some recent studies suggest that heavy use might cause memory problems or depression and problems with learning. But there's no way to tell whether these effects are permanent, but the research suggests that it's certain that they could be certainly long lasting. And recent studies are also suggesting that MDMA may cause long term brain damage. Monkeys who were given the drug twice a day for 4 days showed signs of brain damage that was still evident 6 to 7 years later. So, current research is suggesting that the long term effects of using ecstasy might be long lasting and severe. So, one of the main dangers of ecstasy, the use of it, is the risk of severe dehydration. So, this is when the body loses fluids more quickly than they're being replaced. Our bodies are made up of almost two-thirds of water, so you can see how important it is for us to stay hydrated and keep our fluid levels up. So this water is lost from the body through natural processes, like when we sweat or when we urinate. And sometimes more water is lost than usual. And this might happen because people are ill, like when they lose water due to vomiting or diarrhea. It might be due to other factors like overheating. So normal body temperature is around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 37 degrees Celsius. And when the body gets hotter than this, it's going to cool itself by sweating and by widening the capillaries, which are the tiny blood vessels in the skin. So this causes the blood to cool faster. The trouble here is that MDMA affects this cooling system by causing the blood vessels to narrow. So it's going to reduce that heat loss instead of increasing it. So taking ecstasy is going to raise the body temperature and is going to cause a sudden and excessive sweating. So dancing energetically is going to raise that temperature further and it's going to cause more sweating. So when people take ecstasy, they're already going to be in danger of overheating. And they then go out and dance, often for a long period of time without a break, and they lose a lot of fluid through sweating. So if they don't intake lots of fluids, they can become seriously dehydrated. So if you were to drive a car for thousands of miles on a hot day without keeping up the water levels, that engine is going to overheat and possibly seize up altogether. And when a human body reaches 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius, the body will sweat profusely. And if that fluid is not replaced, that person's at risk of a heat stroke. And this can lead to coma or death due to kidney failure or heart failure or some sort of heat related damage to the brain. So we need to make sure that we're drinking enough water. That's one of the most important parts of keeping your body in good health. There's also the risk of swallowing something that is not, in fact, MDMA. So some ecstasy tablets, they've been found to contain a mixture of MDMA and amphetamine or another stimulant drug. Some tablets sold as ecstasy have even been found to be dog deworming pills or fish tank cleaners. Ecstasy is known as a quote unquote club drug, and it's particularly popular with those who want to dance all night. Users also claim that it lowers inhibitions, making them feel more relaxed and cheerful, yet still energetic. This is why it's widely seen as a young person's drug, with most users in the 16 to 24 age group. And it's also pretty cheap. It's between $7 and $30 a pill. And I've personally heard people say that it makes them feel more sexually attractive and attracted towards others. It enhances the feeling of things. So they want to just sit and rub soft things with their hands because it just amplifies that feeling for them. There have been a number of safety campaigns following deaths from taking MDMA. Many clubs now have chill out rooms in which dancers can relax and recover. So these dancers who've taken ecstasy, they're advised to sip 2 full glasses of water per hour to replace fluid that's lost by sweating. But it can be too dangerous to drink too much water too quickly. So very few people die as a result of taking ecstasy, but it does happen. And when people do die while on the drug, it's usually from a heat stroke, heart failure, or an organ failure.